Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is you are coming from. Welcome to Rush to Judgment with Jessica, and I am Jessica. How are we doing today? Everybody doing good? Everybody doing okay? What's going on? Welcome back. Welcome to. If you are new here, glad to see you. If you are returning, glad to have you back. It's good to see you. Today we are doing another true crime episode. This one is about some ladies who got unalived after a party. I believe, what is the description? A night of partying turned deadly for 24-year-old Instagram model and her friend, 26-year-old. The two women partied in LA prior to returning to an apartment with people they just met. What happened next was an unforeseen, tragic period of events. Well, ma'ams, your first mistake was going back to an apartment with people that you have never met before. I'm going to say that was probably a bad idea. Don't do that. Don't go home with strangers. It's not safe. Shouldn't do that. Anyway, we are going to jump right into it, but just for the record, anything I say here shall not be used against me. I am not in any way an expert or equipped to give advice to anyone in any way. These are just my opinions, my thoughts, my suggestions. If you like my thoughts and my suggestions and my opinions, go ahead, like, subscribe, comment. If you don't, go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment anyway. You can go ahead and tell me that you don't agree. Either way, I'll respond. I don't mind, not heated, but a nice little banter, gets a good, nice little discussion going. If I say something that maybe you don't agree with or that you do agree with, feel free, let me know. But yeah, that's all this is. I am that annoying moviegoer that sits there and talks to the screen and talks to myself, and it's constantly giving commentary in my everyday life. So I figured I'd sit here and share it with you too. So hopefully you enjoy. Yeah, so let's go.
Oh, the wind is very cold. You hold me, try to melt my soul. Makes it harder to say.
They're young, gorgeous, and living the high life.
Everything feels wrong.
Why not have like a justice for Christy and Hilda? What happened in apartment? Something. I don't know what that said. Hollywood. We're in LA, y'all.
This is a story about two women who, from the outside, seem to have it all. They're young, gorgeous,
Christy
and living the high
Giles,
life in Hollywood.
Hilda.
The two party at the most exclusive
Arzola.
nightclubs, while rubbing elbows with celebrities and gracing runways. One of them is a model, the other a talented designer. Both are absolutely beautiful. But everything came to a tragic end on November 13th, 2021. And if rumored whispers are to be believed, there may be a string of beautiful young women who met a similar fate. 24-year-old Christy Giles was a model working her way up the Hollywood ranks. But that wasn't always the case. The Sun.co.uk reported that Christy's mom described her daughter as a free-spirited young lady and southern girl who grew up in Alabama. She enjoyed riding horses, fishing, and even shooting guns with her dad. In school, Christy was a successful soccer player, scouted by colleges, and was reportedly so good that she even played on the boys' team. Christy was also an all-county track star who loved to run up to 6 miles a day just for the fun of it. Her mom says that when she was signed to a modeling contract, she had to decide between that or professional sports. Christy chose modeling, but she continued her other passions. Her stunning, exotic looks with wide-set eyes, a sculpted face, and dark wavy hair made Christy stand out in her small southern town. The very same captivating looks led to her modeling career beginning when she was just 14. Christy Giles was also a runner-up for Alabama Teen USA. She was one of the few models who made it, soon getting gigs in LA, where she eventually moved. She was a little different and stood out in Southern California. She had a bohemian heart, and her mom reportedly told the Sun.co.uk that Christy could have easily been a flower child at Woodstock. She donned flower crowns, loved to wear flowing dresses, and even chose to get married in a ceremony at Burning Man. Christy's equally free-spirited husband, Jan Cilliers, is an accomplished photographer whose social media accounts are covered with artsy photos of his beautiful wife. He was in San Francisco on the 12th when Christy and her designer pal, 26-year-old Hilda Marcela Cabralez-Arzola, decided to hit the town. They started out at the uber-trendy Soho House in WeHo or West Hollywood, a spot reserved for the who's who of Los Angeles. There they spent time dancing before hanging out with friends at a warehouse party in East LA. There's a video of Christy and Hilda at the warehouse party. They look happy and in good form. At this point, there's no sign that anything is wrong. But in just a few short hours, that would tragically change. According to the Sun.co.uk, a man at the warehouse party invited Hilda, who was single and had just moved from Mexico, to an after-party. The message boards say that this mystery man is David Pierce, and the word on the street is, he's nothing but bad news. It's very important to note that everything we discuss about David Pierce is hearsay and speculation. You are innocent until proven guilty. But that doesn't stop things from looking fishy. More on him later. At around 5 a.m. in the morning, everything seemed pretty typical for the party scene in LA, but it's the events of the next 12 hours that we need to unfold. Because at 5 p.m. on Saturday, someone dumped an unresponsive Christy Giles on the sidewalk in front of a hospital in Culver City, Los Angeles. She was sadly pronounced dead on the scene. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner Coroner says, Christy's cause and manner of death is pending results of additional information and testing, and police aren't saying much about how she died or the details surrounding her death either. But luckily, her distraught husband Jan has been doing some investigating of his own, and he told ABC7 Los Angeles that he thinks he knows exactly what happened and that there's a video to prove it. He says CCTV footage shows 3 men dressed in all black, driving a black Toyota Prius, pull up to the hospital and drop Christy's body off. Their faces were shielded by bandanas, and their plates had been removed from the vehicle. Then, 2 hours later, similar-looking men dropped off Christy's friend Hilda in front of a hospital in West LA. She too was reported to be dead, but miraculously, the doctors were able to resuscitate her heart, and Hilda is currently in critical condition fighting for her life. Unfortunately, due to the lack of oxygen to her brain over an extended period of time, Hilda reportedly has very little chance of recovering. Published reports say the designer had large amounts of heroin in her system, but people who knew Hilda say that this is not something she would have knowingly consumed. Christy's husband reportedly told ABC7 that while he believes his wife died of an accidental overdose, he suspects it was foul play. Jan and everyone that knows Christy believes that the drug is not something she would have ever taken herself. He also believes this was a sexually motivated crime.
There are some questions tonight about the death of a young model.
She went out for a night with friends. Somehow it ended with her body being left at a local hospital. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell talked to her husband. Josh is live in Culver City with the story. Josh.
And Giovanna, a producer who worked with Giles, said that many in young Hollywood are mourning this loss. The LAPD believes that it was a drug overdose that turned fatal, but family and friends believe that it was foul play.
The loss is just so hard.
Jan Cilliers was in San Francisco this past weekend visiting his father. His 24-year-old model and aspiring actress, Christy Giles, stayed back in LA. Friday night, Giles went out partying with two friends. Saturday night at 5 p.m., nearly 12 hours from when she was last heard from, Cilliers says Giles' body was left on the sidewalk outside Southern California Hospital in Culver City, where she was pronounced dead. Cilliers says there's video of a car without license plates and men concealing their identities, placing her body there. One of the friends Giles was with went home. The other friend, Hilda Marcela Cabralez-Arzola, who goes by Marcela, was left at a different hospital 2 hours later, Kaiser Permanente in West LA, where she's in critical condition.
Marcela's toxicology report came back, and I guess they found heroin in her system, which is nothing that either of those girls would ever do, not voluntarily.
Cilliers and Giles share their locations with each other for safety via their cell phones, and according to the friend who went home early, the two girls met some men while at a party in downtown LA and ended up at this West LA apartment building.
I've got all the messages that she exchanged with anybody else that night, and she was texting Marcela, the girl that she was with, at 5:30 saying, "Let's get out of here," with like the wide eye emoji.
No messages were sent or checked after that, according to what Cilliers has found via iCloud. The LAPD tells Eyewitness News the preliminary investigation reveals a possible overdose which turned fatal. But Cilliers suspects there was foul play and wants whoever the girls met that night to be held accountable.
So what could have gone so wrong that night? Let's look at what we know so far. This is a parent's worst nightmare, and Christy's mom, Dusty, is understandably still in shock. She talked to the son about what she's heard. She believes her daughter and Hilda left the warehouse party at about 4:45 a.m., but she believes they never made it to the official after party. As I mentioned, Christy's husband has been desperately digging through clues for answers. He cloud traced her phone records to an apartment complex at 8641 West Olympic Boulevard in Los Angeles. It shows that this was the last place she was before she was callously abandoned at the hospital. In his broadcast interview, Jan says the last text Christy sent to anyone was at 5:38 a.m. The message was to Hilda. It read, "Let's get out of here," followed by a wide eyes emoji. Hilda replied yes and stated that she'd called an Uber. It seems like the women weren't comfortable and didn't want to communicate that in front of whoever they were with. But that's when all communication stopped. And from that point on, Christy never sent or read another message. The Uber Hilda ordered arrived. It waited and waited, but Hilda never showed up, so the driver left. unaware of the danger his passenger might have been in. Published toxicology reports on Hilda show that, along with heroin, she had trace amounts of cocaine and amphetamine in her system. Messages exchanged between Christy and Hilda also suggest that they were taking coke at the warehouse party. According to the Daily Mail, we know that at around 4:30 a.m., Hilda sent Christy a text asking if she wanted to do a line of coke. Christy responded with, "Yes, where are you?" Hilda replied, "I'm backstage." Christy's family expects the same results from their daughter's toxicology report later. It's true. There's no sugarcoating the facts. While we don't know much about Hilda, Christy Giles was admittedly a free spirit. She loved parties, festivals, and the culture surrounding them. And some types of recreational drugs are usually associated with that environment. Christy's mom, Dusty, says her daughter was very open about the fact that she had used recreationals before, but Christy insisted that she would never take heroin. Dusty told thesun.co.uk that Christy had a cousin who struggled with an addiction to this drug, and he has been in and out of rehab. This is a cousin Christy was close with, and she was upset with him for using such dangerous substances. Christy had an ex-boyfriend who once got hooked on drugs while they were together too. He got out of rehab, and then the next day he overdosed and died. Christy was adamant that she would never, ever take heroin. Her mom says Christy once told her about friends who OD'd by taking harder drugs. She said, "It's crazy, Mom. They lace this stuff with fentanyl and people do it once as a party thing and they're dead." Her mom had no idea that that conversation would be so foreboding. But we must face facts. What if there was an accidental overdose of harder recreationals that Christy and Hilda both chose to consume at that apartment? Is it possible? Sure, I guess.
Even if it is, who dumped
But
her?
in my opinion, it's highly unlikely. As a matter of fact, it makes no sense to me at all given the current information on this case. If someone accidentally OD'd that night, why didn't anyone call 911? Why did they instead hide their faces and remove the license plate from the car before coldly dropping the woman off outside the hospital? And why two different hospitals? Why were the women dropped off 2 hours apart from each other? I suppose that one might assume that since it was 5 p.m. in downtown LA, perhaps traffic was bad and the two separate hospitals were far apart. Well, I checked, and they aren't. According to Google Maps, they're between 9 and 11 minutes away from each other. I can't find any reason why it would take 2 hours to travel between the two locations. So the question of why the two girls were dropped off at separate hospitals, hours apart from each other, is as of yet still unanswered. But what we do know is that Christy was dropped off first, and that she was dead, and she couldn't be revived. Hilda was dropped off second, and she was dead as well, but she was barely revived. I wonder if the reason for the two separate hospitals and different time drop-offs is right there in those details. Perhaps there was a huge mistake made at that apartment. While I still don't believe that these girls OD'd by accident of recreational choice, and at this point I fully suspect malicious foul play of the worst kind, I do think it's possible that killing the two women was not the intention of whoever did this. Christy wanted to leave the apartment in under an hour after arriving, as evident in the text she sent Hilda while in the apartment. Hilda confirmed the intention to leave the location in her reply to Christy, and even organized transport. Shortly after that, Christy was never active on her phone again, and Hilda wasn't responding to messages. If Christy Giles clearly wasn't comfortable with the situation, it would be odd in her uneasiness to suddenly decide to inject something recreationally at this time. I mean, to my knowledge, it's not exactly the kind of substance you take before jumping in an Uber. and I feel like something or someone at that party scared her. As a matter of fact, I've been at parties where someone breaks out a substance I'm not comfortable with in the past, like injectables, and I've even sent very similar short-range messages to a friend to avoid being rude or confrontational. I've also sent similar texts when someone who makes me uncomfortable has entered my company and I want to leave. Christy's final message to Hilda appears to me like one of these situations may have been possible.
Maybe not the drug situation, but somebody.
So whose apartment were
entered the
Christy
room
and
that you
Hilda
don't necessarily
partying
want
at,
to be around.
and why were they seemingly so keen to leave? This is where we get back to the central figure in this case, David Pierce. In the age of online reviews, this guy doesn't even have a 1 star. I mean, the stuff out there about him is pretty bad, or even really bad, and maybe that's an understatement too. To give you an idea, here's a quick sample of some of the stuff I dug up on David Pierce. Again, it's all hearsay, but given the circumstances of the case and where the girls were, I think it's well worth noting. Some posts read,
"He is a worthless loser who rapes girls because he cannot get laid. One is pressing charges right now. He will be behind bars soon." Dave Pierce aka Dave Bryant is one of the shadiest, dirtiest dudes there is. Apparently this was his apartment, 8641 Olympic Boulevard. He has a long rap sheet and has done all sorts of stuff, predatory and disgusting stuff with women. Been hearing about drugging rumors years. He used to roll with Predator Ron Jeremy and Ralph Reckerman. You should implore the police and FBI and media to release his name to the public and see other victims that come forward. I dated and lived with this guy for 4 months, and it was the most emotionally devastating and violent times of my life. I witnessed him steal countless things including money, iPhones, hotel items, and walk out of grocery stores with carts filled to the top. He put Dave, my sexy husband, in my phone the night we met also. He constantly brags about all his pull and connections, yet it always seemed that every door was slammed in his face and no one wanted to do business with him. He preyed upon women constantly and told me I needed to let him fuck lots of other women or I didn't love him. He brought a very young girl home once and started hooking up with her, but once she was extremely uncomfortable. She started saying no repeatedly. Dave refused to stop and I stepped in and told him she'd had enough and to come have sex with me. I was only telling him that because I felt so sad and scared for the little girl who clearly was frightened by his sexual advances. To top all this off, on numerous occasions he would engage in physical altercations with me, causing major bruising, black eyes, and broken fingers. He bit my face so hard I bled. All in all, he's trash. This guy is the biggest douchebag in LA. He apparently steals money from people. He got my friend drunk and took advantage of her. I met him and he grabbed my phone and put his number inside my phone as Dave, my new husband. I told my girlfriend about this guy who did that, and she said, "Is his name Dave?" I replied back, "Yes."
Dave sounds
It
like
turns out that this guy is a real douchebag. I have heard stories from a lot of people in Hollywood that this guy stole money from. He gave someone of my close girlfriend's date rape drugs. I think every girl should watch out for him.
And you get the idea. They say David has a reputation for taking advantage of young women and that he needs to be stopped. And people have been saying stuff like this online since as early as 2012 as far as I can find. And it probably doesn't help matters that Dave ran around with accused predator and alleged rapist Ron Jeremy, who is currently in jail charged with 30 counts of sexual attacks and abuse. Reports on Facebook state that Dave even sometimes claims to be Ron's nephew. Now, all this could be made up and anyone could write this stuff, so who knows what the truth is.
I don't not believe it.
By the end of this tragedy, there may very well be more to this part of the story. Time will tell. When talking to the media, Christy's husband has implied that David was last seen with his wife and her friend Hilda before they were discarded at the hospitals. The Daily Mail reports that David was also allegedly spotted at the warehouse party with large camera equipment. When Jan woke up the next morning, his wife wasn't responding to his attempts to contact her, and he started to get worried when he didn't recognize the location her phone was displaying via tracking. After a while, he decided to post the address Christy's phone was showing on social media and see if anyone knew who lived there. And that's when people started contacting the worried husband, claiming that David Pierce, aka David Bryant, is the one who lived there. David is also allegedly the owner of a black Toyota Prius, and in response to Jan's post, several people began reaching out to say that the guy that lived at that address was nothing but trouble. Two of David's alleged ex-girlfriends also contacted Jan to warn him about the danger his wife could potentially be in. Jan admitted that he himself had heard stories about David throughout the years and found it odd that the two girls would have gone anywhere with him willingly. But it appears that they did. Christy's phone remained unresponsive at the address all day Saturday. Then at 5 p.m., Jan noticed that her location had moved to a nearby hospital. His worry turned to panic as he frantically called the hospital, but they declined to give him any information, so Jan called Christy's parents in Alabama for help. When Christy's mom contacted the hospital, she was given the news of Christy's passing, and she relayed that to Jan. The Sun reports that investigators have now spoken with two other men that claim they were the ones with Christy and Hilda that night in the apartment. It's also reported that they dropped the two girls off in the Toyota Prius. Cops also went to the apartment and allegedly spoke to David Pierce about the incident. And the story so far from the men is that the two young women accidentally overdosed. There is no word back from the police at this time with further information as to whether or not any arrests have been made. The family is still waiting for so many answers. While the cops were at the apartment, they spoke to two of David's neighbors. I'll tell you what they had to say in a minute. But first, back to David. There's more. And before I tell you, I have to stress again that rumors are just rumors until there's proof. But a lot of independent sources have been saying the same thing for years, and that cannot be ignored without question. So here's a doozy. The Daily Mail reports that Christy's husband told them that David is accused of running with associates that attend snuff parties. Wait, what's a snuff party? Well, according to a TMZ interview with former Scorpions bass player Ralph Rickerman, snuff parties are parties where people pay upwards of $100,000 to witness someone get murdered. Ralph states in the interview that he was at a party one time where he saw something really bad. When prodded further, he seemingly stated that it was a party where they actually pay to see people get killed. The bass player furthered his declaration by saying he wasn't kidding. But later, Ralph released a video on YouTube claiming that this was TMZ editing a 25-minute-long interview to make it look like he was saying he had attended a snuff party by fusing different parts of his interview together, and obviously, that's quite likely a possibility.
And by the way, guys, if I ever really had been to a snuff party, okay, watch the video again from TMZ, I would have never said, I think they kill people in there, which is what I say. I would have said, I witnessed, I saw people get killed, which is absolutely not what I'm saying.
No, actually, I think they actually kill people there and stuff.
I'm saying, I think, because this came through a third person that explained to me about snuff parties that I didn't know existed. So guys, do yourself a favor. Don't get fooled by smart editing. Okay, don't get fooled by people by TMZ that make billions in like taking celebrities, turning something that they say through editing, making them look bad. That's what they do. They show train wrecks. That's how they become rich. I would love for the real footage, which is at least 25 minutes long, to be released to the public so they can see.
You can judge for yourself by watching the two clips. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Without further context, David Pierce, who we believe lives in the apartment that Christy and Hilda were last known to be alive in, has been accused of associating with people who attend snuff parties. It's reported that one of David's ex-girlfriends wrote, "He's a dangerous person, and I've been contacted by numerous women who've also experienced abuse from him." One of Jan and Christy's best friends, Sandy Robinson, has also reportedly been receiving messages from other women claiming that they've had similar bad nights with the men in question. And there lies one of the biggest potential concerns of this case moving forward. If what's said turns out to be true, how many other victims are there? And how many years has this been going on? And that's what we'd all like to know. Especially Christy's family and friends who set up a GoFundMe to help raise money for the investigation and the funeral. I'll include a link to the account in the description below. But on the GoFundMe page, there's a statement that gives me goosebumps. In the description of the fundraiser, the author says, "This story is by no means unique. Since Saturday, we've all received a number of messages from other females who claim to have eerily similar stories, except the only difference between them and Christy and Hilda is that they survived. Judging by that, and what we think we know, there very well may be a deeper story or even a rabbit hole." Several old posts on sites I've never heard of online seem to indicate the many other allegations against David Pierce as well. Again, we don't know who these people are or what the truth is, but I feel like it's important to look at all the information at hand, so I'm including the posts I found at the end of this video. Seeming to add weight to the claims, I mentioned that the police talked to 2 neighbors while at David's apartment. The Sun reports that an unnamed source said, "I heard someone moaning in pain for 5 or 6 or 7 hours all day on Saturday from David Pierce's apartment. I was wondering what it was because there's always very loud noises coming from that apartment. But this was moaning, and it was very weird to me, but he's a weird guy. And I don't want to get on his bad side, so I never confront him. I haven't seen his car for days." Another 75-year-old neighbor also stated that a lot of people have been upset with him already. He makes a lot of noise and there are always people coming and going from his place. What happened to Christy and Hilda? Comment down below and let me know your theories. Were the ladies drugged and attacked? Or is it possible that this is all a big mistake that's being overshadowed by a desperate attempt to evade responsibility of an accidental recreational overdose? Well, based on the information I see right now, which is admittedly one-sided, and pending further investigation, I do believe something absolutely horrible happened to Christy and Hilda at that apartment. Something they did not give consent to. I believe this was not an accidental overdose. I believe this was homicide. But that's just my opinion. And pending further information, that could change. But what do you think happened? Or do you happen to know something about this situation that no one else is talking about? Let me know in the comments down below. Christy's mother, Dusty Giles, believes her daughter was drugged and involved in a sexually motivated attack before she died. Christy's father, Leslie, says she would have fought like hell if she was capable at the time. He's a soldier who served time in Iraq. He states, "My daughter would have fought like hell, and from my understanding from speaking to the emergency room doctor and nurse, they didn't see any visible bruises, scratches, or any indication of an altercation. That's odd if they were forced to do something against their will. But then again, this could indicate them being drugged if another type of assault is detected in a further medical report. I'd also like to know if the girls showed any evidence of prolonged injection use. I mean, if the girls have no track marks on their body, linking to heroin in their past, why would they do heroin time when they're so keen to leave a location and they've called an Uber? Well, there are other ways you can take heroin. Perhaps they were given the substance unknowingly, like maybe they thought they were smoking a joint. And if it's something everyone was taking at the party, How come only the 2 girls OD'd? And I know what a lot of you might be thinking. You might be thinking, well, the girls had other stuff in their system. What's to stop them from doing heroin? There's a small point there, but I'll put myself out on the line. When I was about 15 years younger, I too experimented with typical party scene drugs. I never had a problem, and luckily, I never became addicted. But myself, nor anyone else I knew who liked to experiment, would ever in their life have taken heroin. We just didn't see it as a party drug, or something dangerous. As far as we were concerned, it was deadly.
Heroin's no joke.
If someone broke out some needles or heroin, we were out, and that went for pretty much everyone I partied with. But again, that's just my story. But it proves that you can experiment and stay away from the real hard stuff. Christy's husband is aware of a video showing 3 masked men pushing his wife's body out of a Toyota Prius outside the hospital with no license plate before speeding off. As of yet, the video has not been released to the public. Neither has Christy's medical and toxicology report. The family are also awaiting the results of a rape kit. Before we make definitive assumptions, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. But 2 families are hurting, so we gotta start asking. There's a chance that this video and your comments just might help uncover some clues, so I'm putting the question down to you. What happened on November 13th of 2021? Accidental overdose? Or is there a serial predator on the loose who just murdered 2 girls? On your screen right now is the latest post from Dusty Giles' Facebook page on this matter. The ending of this video will contain screenshots of the posts that indicate the allegations towards David Pierce. These are, at this point, unconfirmed posts found on gossip sites dating back years and shouldn't be ultimately considered this.
What does it say? They keep say family alleged, not the police, also know, but are not sure. The sorry DA office will fight for our daughter and Hilda in court. The men are claiming they did things willingly. Christy texted Hilda at 5:30, let's get out of here. Hilda said yes, getting an Uber. Uber was called. Last thing either woman did. Uber arrived 5 minutes later, waited for 5 minutes. Neither girl ever came out or responded to the Uber arrival notification or anything else ever. My daughter had read receipts on her text messages and after 5:48 no text was ever opened. She did not respond, not until around 5 to 6 p.m. was my daughter's lifeless body was dumped on the sidewalk in front of a hospital. They removed the tag on the car and their faces covered with bandanas and masks. Waited another 2 hours and did the same to Hilda, but at another hospital in the same condition. But they were able to revive her heart, and her brain had already suffered too much oxygen deprivation and is brain dead.
This time as an indication of David's guilt. This is just the information at hand right now. And again, I think it's worth being aware
fought
of.
like hell. Only
David
way
Pierce hasn't released his side of the story. If he had, I would include it too. But for now, we'll have to wait.
I can't read that. I cannot. What does that say? I can't read it. I can't read that. Sorry, I can't read it.
We were meant
Christy's friend Hilda, the designer from Mexico, was still fighting for her life. Sadly, not long ago, she too passed away right around the time of her birthday, when her family had to make the very hard decision to take her off life support. There was no chance for her to recover. Rest in peace, Christy and Hilda. But just a couple days ago, 3 men were arrested in connection with this case. One of the men was 47-year-old Michael Ansbach, an ex-cameraman from the TV show Vanderpump Rules. And the second man was 42-year-old Brant Osborne, an extra off NCIS LA. Brant was actually arrested on the set of NCIS LA. Both of these men are believed to have been in the car that dropped off Christy and Hilda at the hospitals. They've been charged with accessory to manslaughter with bail set at $100,000 each. Both Michael Ansbach and Brant Osborne have been released on bail. And the third man that was arrested was none other than 37-year-old David Pierce, the suspect Zoolander wannabe from the original video I made on Christy and Hilda. He's actually Brant Osborne's roommate, and they'd been living at that apartment for about 6 months. Not only has David Pierce been arrested, but his bail is set at $1 million. According to the Daily Beast, David Murrieta Jr., an actor and stuntman, told the Post that Brant Osborne had boasted about the big weekend being the craziest weekend of his life. Osborne reportedly told Murrieta about the party. He said Christy and Hilda came back to the apartment and took a bunch of drugs. Osborne said he left the party for a while, and when he returned, David Pierce told him that Christy was dead. After checking her pulse, they decided not to call 911 and instead try to figure out what to do with her body.
I read the speculation. And wouldn't it be better to just tell people what really happened? I mean, I think then you would have a chance to set the record straight, maybe.
A lot of what's being written.
A lot of what's been written is, do you think...
Slander.
Slander. Could you tell me about some of the things that are wrong?
No comment.
Well, you just commented, sir. Shouldn't have said shit. You don't say jack.
The DA for LA County says David Pierce is now also being charged with assaulting a woman in 2010, as well as another in February of 2019, and at least another 2 incidents in 2020. Damn, Dave, it's not looking good for you. Actor Steve Bauer from Scarface, you know, Al Pacino's best friend in the movie, yeah, that guy. He told the Daily Mail that he witnessed David Pierce assault a woman in 2008 at a house party in Beverly Hills when they were roommates. Apparently, David Pierce disappeared with a young Latina woman, and her friend got worried when she couldn't find her. So Steve Bauer and the missing woman's friend began searching.
He's a predator.
Moments later, the missing young woman burst out of a room crying. So Dave tried to hurry Steve out of the party, saying, "Don't listen to her. This is a stupid party. Let's get out of here." He did this while desperately trying to get Bauer to get into his car. But Steve made Pierce take the 2 women home as well. They sat in the back as Pierce sped down the road. The crying woman in the back seat said David had cornered her and locked the door. She told him he didn't want to do anything and said that she wasn't into him. He insisted that she did like him and then proceeded to force himself upon the woman. David continued to claim that she was a liar. Nothing more than a maid, he said. She'll brag about this later, Pierce claimed at the time. A physical altercation between David Pierce and Steve Bauer ensued. Then Bauer promptly moved out of David's spare room and didn't have much to do with him after that. He recalls that Pierce seemed like a nice guy for about a week, but his true darkness emerged when he began making a lot of bold statements about drugging women to have his way with them. Steve hoped Pierce was joking at the time, but it soon became obvious that David wasn't kidding. Oh, and remember Reicherman, the bass player from the Scorpions that TMZ had the snuff party interview with? He said he went to David Pierce's apartment once to visit Steve Bauer, but Steve wasn't home. So David let him in and showed him around. Ralph said David had an adult movie blasting from his bedroom and showed Ralph a stack of women's IDs in his apartment, which he handed out to young girls to get them into clubs. He also had dozens of credit cards not in his name. He refused to give an explanation about the cards. But when Ralph asked David why he needed IDs to get girls into clubs, David said it was because a lot of the girls they hung out with were underage. Then Ralph says young girls started showing up at the apartment where Dave would give them one of the IDs to go out with later. He says these girls were very, very young. That's when Ralph says he decided to leave and excused himself. My question to Ralph and Steve is, why didn't you report David? Why did you let this go? This man was clearly a serial predator of women and girls, yet you let him slide and now 2 girls are dead. It's not your fault, but you could have been the reason these lives were still living. What a shame. For what? To not be a snitch? To mind your own business? It was your business. But that's just my opinion, and nobody wants to hear that. Anyway, it's a big update and a massive step forward for justice.
Jesus.
I do wonder if Ron Jeremy ties into this in some way, but I guess we'll find out. I hope David Pierce and the other 2 guys get exactly what they deserve. As for the families of both Christy and Hilda, Christmas and life will never be the same. I hope they find some strength in each other during this horrible time.
Update number 2.
Christy and Hilda's deaths have now been ruled homicides after date rape drugs were found in their systems. David Pierce has since been charged. He also is now facing multiple charges of rape dating back to at least 2010, including forcible rape and 1 count of rape of an unconscious or asleep person. He's even facing another charge of sexual penetration with a foreign object. His bail is set to $3.4 million. Apparently more charges are coming forward. Rest in peace, Christy and Hilda, as the fight for justice continues.
Jesus. Lord have mercy. Oh my God. So, what the hell? So, Pierce 40 and Osborne 42 face homicide charges in the November deaths of Christy Giles and Hilda, 26. The women were found overdosed after being dumped outside 2 separate hospitals in LA. Pierce, who is being held on $3.4 million bond pending unrelated assault charges, appeared in LA Superior Court for a preliminary hearing. Oh, this was goodness. When was this? July of this year. If convicted on all the charges, he faces 2 more felony counts for selling or offering to sell the women a controlled substance leading up to their drug-induced homicides. If convicted on all the charges, Pierce could face up to 120 years in prison. Meanwhile, Osborne, a Staten Island native actor who insists on his innocence outside of court, posted $40,000 bond on Monday. A warrant was issued for his arrest last week and charges of being an accessory to the woman's deaths. Hollywood producer David Pierce appeared in court after being charged with murdering LA model and her architect friend, who overdosed on a cocktail of drugs and were dumped outside hospitals. Pierce, 40, and actor Bryant Osborne, 42, face homicide charges in the November 1st death of Christy Giles and Hilda. Pierce, who is being held on 3.4 pending the assault charges. He also faces 2. Where I just read all that. Yep. Oh my goodness. Meanwhile, Pierce is now facing a slew of felony sexual assault charges for a series of unrelated cases. As the LADA warned, he may have other victims. Osborne told the Post on Monday he had not witnessed Pierce abusing women. I asked one of the victims because I heard her scream in the middle of the night and our bedrooms were like adjacent, and I asked her, I said, is everything okay? She said, we were role playing, Osborne repeatedly told the Post. Pierce never spoke anything to me about physically disrespecting women. I never saw him disrespecting women ever. I call bullshit. Osborne allegedly told two fellow actors, Alexandra, yep, that he was partying with Giles and Arzola before their deaths and helped Pierce dump their bodies. He told me how they'd partied. Two girls came back to their place, and the girls had a bunch of drugs. Told the Post last week. That's what he said already. These guys are fucking creeps, bro. So 7 additional women have come forward to claim Pierce sexually assaulted them between August 2010 and November 2021. He warned there may be other victims, urging them to come forward. We know that often survivors do not report sexual assault for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they feel the system is not going to listen to them. Gee, you think? Sometimes they're afraid of their assailant, sometimes they feel ashamed, and we recognize that these are all factors that play a role. That is one of the reasons we're here to say to our community and certainly survivors out there that if you feel comfortable coming forward, we're here for you. He is facing 3 counts of forcible rape, 2 counts of sexual penetration by foreign object, 1 count of sodomy, and 1 count of sexual penetration by use of force. Yeah. Good Lord. So that one was deep. That one was heavy. I mean, they're all a little bit heavy, but geez Louise. And that one was more current. So this is all still going on. I wonder how that one will turn out. I don't know. But that's just more like the Harvey Weinstein of it all, and the sick corners of Hollywood, and you know, like that type of stuff that's going on, or that type of stuff that happens. You just wonder, like, what's really happening and what's going on, and there's really some sick people in the world. It's really kind of crazy. So it's really sad for these two. And I mean, you know, Christy only went because her friend wanted to go to the after party. Or they both wanted to go. And they got there, and it was just wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And they were like, let's get out of here. And they tried to leave. By that point, something was already in their drink. Something was already happening, you know, and they just And then, you know, they couldn't, and then they were being held there. You know, ladies, if you're ever out and you do go somewhere, don't take drinks from anybody, ever. Not even at their house. Don't let them open a drink. You open your drink. Don't ever take an open drink from somebody you don't know or somebody you just met. Don't do it. Don't do it. And always watch your drinks at the bar. Always watch your drinks anywhere. They can slip that stuff in there real quick and you'll never know. So just watch out for yourselves. Watch your back. Watch your friends' back. Don't let them leave. You know? Just, like, be careful. Like, just watch out. Like, they never suspected any of this. I guarantee it. They had no idea until it was too late. And that sucks. They were so young. Okay. Well, join me next time on another Rush to Judgment Reacts true crime style. True crime edition. There you go. That's what I meant. All right. Like, subscribe, comment, share, get it out into the universe. It's been real. See you next time.